welcome. This is a very exciting episode for me because I have my first guest. This is KK, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself, and then we'll see where this goes.
Hi, I'm KK. This is my first ever podcast I've ever been a guest on, so it's very exciting. I'll tell you a little bit about what I do. I make porn on the internet. I find that to be something very fun that I like to do, and I get to do it with my friends. And I get to talk to my friends a lot about how that impacts us and what we think about sex and life. And so now I'm here.
Yes. So, also, I asked if she would be a guest before she even actually knew the topic. And then I explained the topic and she got excited. So, we will dig into this. I know last episode I kind of started talking about it, but I'm more interested in getting into it now. So, here we are. My background to this point had been so focused on meeting other people's needs, being a people pleaser as a coping mechanism for trauma. And now, having had a couple years to start unpacking the full gravity of that, the times that I didn't think I deserved to go pee because someone else needed me, or the very interesting hidden benefits around staying dehydrated. So I literally needed to pee less to be more available for other people. Wild. But that was part of my journey. It was that extreme. And now I'm slowly starting to see that even in my own podcast, choosing to put on a wig and wear an outfit that I feel sexy in and have a guest who's here to talk about her journey with it too, that I still overthought it. I still had moments where I was like, is this an okay thing to do? Says who? I get to choose. It's up to me whether this is good or not. So, and if you're enjoying it, that's cool too. But that's the bonus. That's the bonus. It's doing it. That's the exciting part. And so, entering now into my pleasure activism era and supporting other people who maybe that first step. So we're recording this on a Monday, and one of the things that I implemented a couple years ago, which was this radical deal in my life, was every Monday after work, from the time I got home until the time I went to bed, it was a hard no to everyone else, to anything else, unless it brought me joy, unless it specifically sparked joy for me. And let me tell you, instituting that was not easy. It was in my calendar. I had signs for the door. It didn't matter. I still got pulled in a lot of different directions. And so that was kind of when I started to see that boundaries are a huge part of this. Boundaries are also a huge thing in sex. There's a lot of interesting overlap. And so, for you as a human, what has been your journey, if you want to touch a little bit on people pleasing to entering what pleasure for you looks like?
Yeah, that is such a huge question, right? I will say I've never been 100% the type of person that's like, I am only existing to please other people. Like, that is something I learned. That's not how I was born, if that makes sense. Um, but once it was something that I was learned, it was very hard to unlearn and get to a point of existing for myself and my pleasure and my hedonism, right?
Yes.
So, um, I spent a lot of years really, really sad and really not liking myself. And in those years, I found a lot of comfort in being helpful to others and pleasing other people, because when you're not happy with yourself and fulfilled with yourself, being useful to other people is like the easiest second option, right?
I'm going to butcher this quote, but Betty Friedan, I believe, is the pioneer of like, it's easy to be there for other people.
Yes.
It's very hard to be there for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, she's a big deal and she felt it. So we're not alone.
Right. 100%. 100%. This is something that I think most people, and especially most women, are going to go through during their life, is prioritizing other people over themselves. And then hopefully I hope, I'm optimistic that also most of those people that experience that will go through the journey of, now how do I center myself in my own life,
Yes. So
become my own sun in the
yes.
universe, you know?
Yes. Become my own sun. I love that.
Because you can say all day the earth doesn't revolve around the sun revolves around the earth, but you're the sun, dude. And whatever you say, science shows different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it's been a journey.
I felt some joy enter the space. Was that just me?
No, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Good. Recentering that conversation, reminding yourself that you are the sun
Oh yeah,
as well. Like
yeah,
there was a little bit of a beam
yeah.
of light that kind of entered.
This is something that I've thought about a lot as well. The words that we use, the way we move our bodies, every little thing that we do should be done with intention because it impacts our mental health at the end of the day. So, for example, verbally saying out loud and reminding myself that I'm the sun of my own universe, right? Um, brings a bit of peace back to my heart. Whereas if I were to sit here and not even use negative language, but just maybe more neutral language about myself, then it doesn't bring that same level of peace. So to use language intentionally to bring yourself to that place of centering yourself is something I've thought a lot about.
Yeah. Who are some artists or other creators or musicians, define it however you'd like, who have helped you hear those words you've been thinking or give you that message and you're like, oh no, they're doing it too?
I think the biggest one for me personally is an artist. I think she's originally from Oakland, California. Her name, she goes by K Flay. Yeah. Uh, she's amazing. And the first song I ever heard from her that blew my fucking mind um, was called Get It Right. And it so perfectly, it's like she looked at my life and felt what I felt and then put it into a song. So I literally, like, I sat down after listening to that song on repeat for like 2 months. I sat down and basically wrote like an essay where I took like every line from the song and it just kind of diaried about it. And it was really cool. It was an experience. But after that, after I had been listening to her, I got to see her live. She came out, her very next album had this song that fucking blew my mind. I think it's called I Like Myself.
The
But
reason I was tripping is because I was going hard to that on my drive
yeah.
today.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
song specifically.
Yes. Because she says, I like myself most of the time.
Yeah. What's wrong
Bro,
with
yeah.
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 that? Yes.
It's so good.
And then lyrics that offer, I thought, a perspective that was okay, coming from a perfectionist and recovery perspective, right? My messy bits, my chaos parts, my unpolished fuckery isn't something to be like broadcasting. Like, that's a problem. No.
Wrong.
It's my humanity. Welcome to being human.
Yeah.
We have needs.
So this is speaking of that, actually, very specifically for music, one thing that's kind of fucked up is, especially when it comes to like that more angsty music, that sad time music where you're like, fuck, like, okay, for example, 21 Pilots, the band, they had 2 albums that were like really sad, angsty, really good though. And then they like got families and therapy and money and now their music is not, it's not good. It's not as good. But that's like the fucked up interesting thing about art is when we're placing ourselves as an artist in a spot to make art, we're like, this has to be perfect. But then the rest of the world might be looking at that and being like, hey, that art is fucked up and sad and all of the things that I'm feeling. And I think we gotta let the raw fucked up bits of ourselves out more. We gotta.
All right, thanks for setting this up, because a question, and I was explaining before that I haven't edited any of my episodes yet, because perfectionism, I mean, the whole point, big thing I'm trying to show is like we could just be ourselves, and whatever's going to come of it's going to come of it. And I know myself well enough that I was just saying that I don't even like when notifications go off on my phone, because it turns into a to-do list, and then before you know it, I just want to throw my phone out the window.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have this huge backlog of videos I need to edit and make perfect and all this stuff, like I'm not going to get it out there. So stream of consciousness, wherever it's at, told her the topic, told her how we're flowing, and so this was a great setup. So a big fear for me in this journey, and I know, and I've been saying it, I've been trying to reframe, because I know fear blocks the good shit from the universe, and I do believe that good things happen to good people. I do believe that I inherently I'm a good person. I have made mistakes, but I love that I've made mistakes and I learn from them,
Mm-hmm.
and really trying to grow with that. There's this huge block inside me, inside my body, inside my mind. Not my body. My body knows better. She's wise. But my brain gets in the way, that the day I come all the way out, all my full butterfly, that's going to create a stigma on my existence that won't let me crawl back into the hole of safety. So my background being having a master's in social work and working at nonprofits and government agencies. So like even my last podcast to reveal that I enjoyed marijuana, that was a big deal to me, because I was dabbling in maybe some seasonal social work related stuff, and they were like, "Will you be able to pass a background check?" Yes, but also a drug test. And my first thought wanted to be like, "Does that include weed?" But obviously, you don't give that away.
Yeah.
I did not end up following up, is the point, but stuff like that. The more that I am myself, the more that I'm out there, the further I have to start saying goodbye to some of that safety net. So I guess I'm sharing that that's a fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know that I'm not alone in that type of a fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious what wisdom you might have for folks. And your journey doesn't have to be my journey. I hope it's not, because that, imitation is suicide, one of my favorite quotes. And so finding Ralph Waldo Emerson. And so finding that balance, but having the idea of safety and the scary unknown, that's a human experience. So around that, thoughts.
Well, I want to ask you a question first.
All right, I'm open to this.
Because you said you started this conversation, this topic, with this idea of once you come out of your cocoon as a butterfly. So are you envisioning that there's just going to be one day where you wake up and you're like, "Yep, finally got it. I'm perfect."
No.
Okay.
No, because perfection isn't my goal, but feeling like most of the spaces I'm in most of the time, I'm bringing my full self. So I've been reflecting a lot. We went to a lifestyle party over the weekend, and in some spaces with some people, I felt super empowered to be like, "This isn't working for me. I'm not comfortable here." Or let's move this way, or let's have a conversation like this, or could you get me water? Like whatever. It was easy. And then I got to a certain space in the night where I was like, the clock is ticking. I have not had as many orgasms as I would like to. Let me start to settle. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So another, I know desperation blocks the good shit from the universe as well. So that was, a lesson learned.
Mm-hmm.
And she shows up and is this, I don't know, it reminded me that my needs, my bodily autonomy, my desires and wishes matter too. And I can take whatever radical act I need to meet those needs, including changing the environment that I'm in, including making a shift in the energy of other people leaving, right? Like the
Mhm.
possibilities are endless. And yet I clearly was in a fawn state. And as that was happening, well, I mean, that in itself meant I was triggered, but
Mhm.
it took seeing you and hearing you and those reminders to be like, I don't have to stay here.
Mhm.
I get to get out of this.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, like that the butterflying
Mhm.
is opportunities where I have that space between, okay, what is happening with my body? Because I was trying to get a need met. I was interested in having a good time, getting into a space of pleasure.
Mhm.
And it wasn't that. And I have limiting belief around how that's a finite resource.
Mm. Mm.
I don't want to feel like that's a finite resource. Whether I'm at the airport, whether I'm visiting somebody, whether I'm in my own space, the mall, like at a sex club, I don't think I think my blossoming is when that's readily available to me. It's like, so Pavlov, when you're training a dog, you teach a dog to sit in one space, and then you teach a dog to sit in another space, and you teach a dog to sit in another space.
Sure.
And then eventually the dog's like, oh, when I'm given the command to sit, I will just always sit. And so you have to give yourself those opportunities in those different environments to get there. So I was in what felt like to me a new environment.
Mhm.
I mean, it was literally a new environment to me, but like kind of needed some retraining in that moment.
Right. Which is fair, and that's gonna happen. And while I hear what you're saying about training yourself Pavlov style, um, I I would challenge you because you're worried as if the dog could understand he might be as well, right? You're worried that, well, if one day I forget that I'm supposed to sit when he says sit, do I just get taken out back? Like, is that it for me? Like, is it on to the next dog? Like, so instead of, I would just really like to have you be a bit more intentional about the analogy that you're using with yourself.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And maybe instead of training like a dog or emerging like a butterfly from a cocoon, which typically butterflies don't go back into those, right?
Right.
Instead, maybe you're a flower that is blossoming, and as we know, flowers can often close their blossoms, open their blossoms. They can be very particular about their environment, their conditions, and that can determine whether or not they are their full, beautiful, blossomed selves, right?
Yeah.
So maybe instead of a butterfly worrying about if you can get back into the cocoon, maybe you're just a flower, and depending on your environment and are your needs being met, are you blossoming or not?
It's beautiful because I will also, when I'm in a headspace that feels most connected to my essential self,
Mm-hmm.
that that analogy of being a sophisticated house plant,
Mm-hmm.
that's the one that really hits for
Yes.
me.
Yes.
So thank you for that reminder. And
Mhm.
also you're saying be more intentional about your
Mhm.
language. So I I have, okay, yeah, I've been on a certain path of perfectionism is insidious and
Mhm.
it sneaks back in.
It does.
And so I would like it to not be true, but what is actually true is trying to be a fully baked new version of myself,
Yeah.
as if that door is just like closed forever, but that's not how it works. So our brains are plastic, we can create new neural pathways, we can put ourselves in environments where we thrive.
We can.
And yet,
And yet sometimes, just like a plant, maybe you started growing in this direction. Oh, actually, there's no sunshine over there. Maybe you're going this way now. Sometimes a new branch may still start to go off in this direction again after a couple of years. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Originally, there was no sun there.
yeah,
Sometimes it gets a little hopeful. Maybe there's some sun over here now. Nope, just kidding. I should have known better. You're a plant, dude. How are you going to know better?
yeah.
So it's very infinitely so important. I cannot stress this enough. The older I get, the more this rings true. The language that we choose, even down to our humor. So this journey for me of intentional language, especially when talking to myself about myself or about myself to other people as well, and then also about my friends, that also matters, but it had to start with me, right?
Right.
But it started when a friend in 2020, he was making a joke. I had sent him like a self-deprecating joke that was just the type of humor that we share.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of joking back and forth for a minute, and then in a joking fashion, but also super serious, he was like, "We don't self-deprecate in 2020. We self-aggrandize."
Oh.
And from that moment forward, I don't know why that just like hit me like a train, but it did.
Yeah.
But I started changing all my jokes. So instead of, you drop something on the floor and you're like, I just can't fucking hold on to anything, No, wrong. I drop something on the floor. I am the queen of putting things back on the floor quickly.
Wow.
Still that same level of like getting out a quick little witted, clever joke, but it's not mean to yourself.
Right. The one I came up with as you're talking was gravity got my ass.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, it doesn't even have to be overwhelmingly positive. It can be neutral humor, but just not self-deprecating. Never
Sure.
self-deprecating.
Sure.
That's bad.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. And then that kick-started me on just like, oh my gosh, my jokes make an impact on my mental health. What else am I doing or saying or being or working with that I could easily change?
Yeah.
That is fucking me in the long run.
Right. Because I think I might mess this one up, but beliefs impact our thoughts, and our thoughts impact our feelings, and our feelings are getting us closer to that cycle of it all. So
exactly.
If we believe that it's funny to make fun of ourselves, like to harm ourselves in our humanness, then we're adding to that cycle.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to ask you about. So Sonia Renee Taylor, she wrote The Body is Not an Apology, and this is a book that has been a game changer for me. I recommend it to everybody. I'm working on the workbook right now. A statement that a quote from her book is when we're hungry, we start to accept things. We accept things when we're hungry, I believe is exactly how she put it. And for me, as someone also recovering from an eating disorder, which very much ties to perfectionism, to OCD, to people pleasing. So the most direct line that I can make throughout my years of recovery from eating disorder is I thought, which is not my own fault, we're inundated with messages about this, but that my body had to be a certain size or shape or whatever. The list is very long. How my skin had to be, all of this stuff, because of the beauty industrial complex. And people pleasing, I wanted to please the people. And so actually I had this note in my journal from like very beginning days of eating disorder. My goal with my therapist was for me to feel like I could wear whatever clothes I felt like wearing. And it was like, well, where do I stand on this currently? And I was like, well, I have these booty shorts that if I wore them out in public, I would actually be harming people with how egregious my thighs would look. That's my own handwriting saying that was the fear, that was the concern. Good news, I wear what I want. Okay. That has since evolved. But where I think it might also be sneaking up. So people pleasing, I had this like visual hold back. Like if I feed myself, I nourish myself to the point that I need, and that causes me to gain weight, that's going to become unsightly to other people, whatever. If I start nourishing my pleasure journey, my wellness, my happiness, like today, I thought it would be fun to dance in the parking lot. I put on some good music and I just started dancing. The world did not end. I didn't get in anybody's way, right? But that would have been another insidious little people pleasing type of thing that would have held me back. And so we start to accept things when we're hungry. I feel like you could extrapolate that to anything. So if we're hungry for self-acceptance, if we're literally hungry for food, wherever that might be, do you have any areas of your life that maybe you were once hungry and you were accepting things? I know love and romantic relationships, we usually have a journey with that, or maybe what you do or don't post, or I don't know, in your creativity, do you have any acceptings that you're doing because of hunger?
Yeah, I think we all do, right? Um, when we talk about, I I would like a little more clarification on accepting when you're hungry. Does that mean like I'm accepting things that are subpar because I'm hungry for that, or does that mean like what I guess I need a little more clarity.
I think it could be. I
Okay.
think it's open. So like in the context I read it in the book,
Mhm.
for me,
Mhm.
it was directly related to actually being physically hungry because I read it during my eating disorder recovery time, the first time I read it. And then when I read it again, yeah.
So in the context of being physically hungry, what what are you accepting? I guess is my
I
question.
was accepting the shame other people might put on me for being fat and hungry,
I see.
right? So while I was, I mean, I Google did like a memories thing of like 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and I was super, super thin.
Mhm.
And my thought, so super thin me wearing this like workout shirt about progress and like, the most motivational bullshit is on these workout shirts.
Mhm.
And then a picture of the scale and like the number and my goal and all of this stuff. And like, I'm just dead in the eyes.
Mhm.
I was so hungry all of the time. I had a headache. It was just
Mhm.
like I wasn't well, but man, was I getting positive feedback on how hard I was working.
Yep.
So I was accepting positive feedback
Mhm.
instead of nourishing my body.
Mhm.
Like that's a version of it. Or let me use another one for me, like having had so much positive reinforcement around being married to my high school sweetheart and how long we had been together, because people think that length of time is somehow this victory. It's not. If anything, I started accepting things that were not healthy, that were not good for me and my well-being and my pleasure, simply because there was so much desperation for that approval of other people.
Mm.
Like, so that was me accepting something because I was hungry for it. Daddy
Okay.
issues popping up.
So it's almost a bit of validation, right?
Yeah.
In these examples at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um Definitely can relate in a lot of ways. I will say, as of right now, I can proudly say that I don't accept a whole lot because I'm not hungry for a whole lot. One of the things I am currently hungry for and struggling with
Ooh.
that we can talk about, maybe not this week because I get your company, but generally right now, I've moved very far away from home. And I haven't allowed myself to really root here because I see this as a temporary space.
Yeah.
So I haven't, I'm lonely. I'm lonely. And so what I've accepted in being lonely is I've been on some terrible dates, even though I'm not even looking for a romantic connection at this point. But when you're an adult, how do you make friends? What do you do? I can go to a bar and drink. That's not good either. Um, I can sit and I like to play a lot of games, so I can go to like a gaming event, sit down, play a bunch of games with people. But then I think about that and that okay, now I'm running the risk of what if I don't even like these people? What if they don't follow the rules of the game, which is the worst thing they could possibly do? um, uh, So I've accepted solitude
Mm.
because I have some fears around meeting people.
Okay.
And I've also accepted less than ideal social situations in order to avoid facing my fears of actually meeting people. So
Damn.
that's something I've struggled with this year.
I really appreciate that you organically brought up loneliness because that's a huge thing on my heart. It has been for months, and I still haven't connected all of the dots, but I know that a role that I'm playing in this love revolution that is amongst us is it's around this loneliness pandemic and getting us as a people back to a place where we are finding connections and building that, because no matter where we're at, and I'll just speak for myself because I'm slowly learning this. It's evolving constantly.
Right.
That wherever we end up, there are going to be good people around us. It's just whether or not we're putting ourselves out there to find them, and whether we see our the benefit to us for having that connection being built and what that looks like. So if you did make roots here and then you left, there would be pain in that too.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is actually the greater value, and what does that take? And you were earlier this week reminding me that sometimes, yes, we want comfort, we seek that comfort, but then also sometimes we need to be pushed outside of that. And I do love that. I really like giving the advice of going to the edge of your comfort zone and then just yeeting off the side and seeing where you land.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a pretty extreme version of that in my own life right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
But I don't know. I think it feels worth it because I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
So you being here and you opening your doors to me has meant a lot, and already being able to show me like good people, good places. I don't think Philadelphia is ever going to be a place. I mean, I'm not going to speak for my future self, but like there's nothing about this that particularly calls to me. But I'm still going to have a warm, fond memory from this time. And so thank you. Just want to officially say thank you on that.
Of course.
But yeah, that's interesting, because one of the things I'm trying to shift on my intentional thinking is what's the best that could happen.
Yeah,
because that's a big one.
It is a big one, because we get, and this is sort of the next step that I'm working on in my intentional language journey. Is intentional thought now. Whoa, crazy. How do you control your own thoughts? You can't, but it's like meditating, you have to slowly guide yourself back to, gently, I shouldn't say slowly, it doesn't have to be slow, but it does have to be a little bit gentle. To guide yourself back to a positive direction for your thoughts. It doesn't have to be all positive, rosy thoughts all the time. It doesn't have to be anything specific other than a more positive direction. At least that's how I'm framing it for myself, right?
Yeah. Positive or neutral, but just not
negative. Yeah. Fuck negative, dude. Yeah. Yeah. So, shit, where was I going with this?
I don't know, but may I ask a different question?
Yeah, go for it.
What would little you, and she can be whatever age feels right, but little young you, what would she be super proud of you for?
Oh man, that's such a cool question right now. Because I was just thinking as you were starting that, I was like, oh, I've been avoiding my, your child self that like lives in your brain and sometimes throws a tantrum. I've been avoiding her. I've been like, keep her away from me, because I'm going through a period of extreme loneliness, and she went through a lot of that too, and it's scary to talk to her right now.
Yeah.
But she would be so fucking proud that I moved so far away from everyone and everything I knew just because I knew I would regret it if I didn't.
Yeah.
Like, she would be so fucking proud, dude.
Oh,
Like,
she would
yeah.
be. She would be.
Yeah, she'd be like, "You did what? That sounds like an awesome adventure, dude."
Yeah.
Yeah, she'd be really proud about that.
I think my younger self and your younger self could be high-fiving over similar
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
right?
for
Like
sure.
my younger self didn't I don't even think she knew there would be such possibilities available to me. And so for her to
Yeah,
get to see me now and be like,
yeah,
cool, right? Like
yeah,
there are cheerleaders.
yeah. There's, you know what? Actually, there's so much that my younger self would be proud of me for,
Yeah.
and that feels really cool.
Yay.
Yeah,
I love that.
because she always wanted to just like constantly be having adventures.
Yeah.
She always wanted to be surrounded by her friends and have like an open door in her life so that her friends could physically come to her house at any point.
Yeah.
Which obviously I don't have right now, so maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of avoiding her. But I've had that very recently in the very recent past. I've been physically close to a lot of friends, and having them just pop over after work or pop over for drop off cold medicine at my door when I'm sick, like, oh my god. um so I've got community. I've got community I will be going back to. I've embarked on an epic adventure
Yep.
of physical distance from anything and everything I know.
Yes.
Uh,
Even the way that water is pronounced.
literally. And then also, she would be really proud that like I, I always wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a star, and now I get to put my work online, and I feel like I've hesitated to sort of hype myself up about it because it's porn. What's the big deal? There's thousands of porn stars out there. There's a bunch of porn on the internet.
That's wild. You're telling me
I
what's
know.
the big deal.
I
And
know.
I was like, it's a big deal. I said masturbate, you know? Like, okay.
Yeah. But she'd be really happy about that.
Yeah. Speaking of plugging, here you have an event coming up.
I do in February. I'll February 2025. I'm doing a meet and greet in Las Vegas, Nevada.
My hometown, I don't know if I've discussed that, but that's if you were to ask where I'm from, I'm working on proudly saying Las Vegas. Anyway.
Heck yeah.
So Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Meet and greet. Yeah.
Meet and greet. More details will come out on all my socials, which I'm sure you'll link somewhere wherever this is going.
Drop a link below. I've always wanted to say that.
Yeah. So that's I'm nervous, but I'm excited. But being nervous makes it more exciting.
Okay, yeah.
And being excited makes me more nervous.
Sure.
So it's like there's a lot going on about that in my brain. Sure. But I'm overall I'm excited. Yeah. Because that's a weird and interesting leap, especially in the sex industry, right? Of, well, I was just on your screen, but now you get to actually meet me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of safety concerns. There's a lot of just, I don't know what kind of people are going to show up to that yet.
What's the best that could happen?
I just get to meet a bunch of people that are really cool. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
I think so too. I've also seen you in enough circumstances where even if someone not cool shows up, you're going to see the cool in them or be able to just set a boundary that makes it cool again. Yeah. So, yeah.
For the most part, speaking of boundaries, people in general that I've found, this is something I've been thinking about too over the last few days. If I can clearly state what my boundary is and why I have it, in an efficient, just like tidbit sort of way, like they don't need the details, but I could just say like, I want to keep talking to you. You kind of got to sandwich it, right? Just like with any criticism, it's better to put it in a sandwich. It makes it a lot more digestible. I want to keep talking to you, but I feel a little claustrophobic with how close we are right now. so I need you to take a step back. In that situation, I'm envisioning that I'm against a wall for some reason.
Yeah.
But I could also say, like, I'm going to take a step back. Please don't follow me, because
Yeah.
I've done that before too. Which is a real, I've literally like said this to people, because sometimes I get this feeling of being like trapped, even like I'm not a sim. I can't move because there's a plate on the floor. That's not real. But my brain sometimes freaks out about that.
Yeah.
Like people just being like, I can't shove past them.
Right.
Like I can't knock them over.
So the template that I really like is my boundary is blank.
Mhm.
So my boundary is I have enough space between me and other people, whatever that might look like.
Right.
Should you choose to accept that boundary, I will feel safe.
Mhm.
If you choose not to accept that boundary, I will remove myself from the situation.
Nice.
And I found that really empowering,
Mhm.
even though there are definitely times when it's the scarier thing to do.
Mhm.
And so that practicing of the fawning and choosing to set a boundary instead.
Now, in your experience, have most people been receptive to that?
Yes.
Same.
Yeah.
It's so cool. You
Yeah.
mean I can just say what I need and I'll just fucking get it, dude? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
It gets convoluted when I try to be nice.
Don't do that.
I know.
That sucks.
I know.
Okay.
Niceness. Talking about things the universe does not respond well to. Niceness is not
That's
a criteria. It's not a criteria.
No.
So being convicted in the fact that I deserve to have my boundary upheld, that is something that gets responded well to. So yeah.
All of my most beautiful friends, inside and out, have told me that what they like best about me is that I don't take shit. You've said that to me.
Yeah.
All of my favorite people in the world have said that to me. That they're like, okay, we'll go to lifestyle events, right? And I will establish a boundary, which I'm not sure how much experience y'all have at that sort of thing, but single men in particular tend to want to push boundaries. Very rude. Don't do that if you're a single man. And so I get the joy, and it never occurred to me that this would be something that was difficult for people, because by the time I entered this space fully and completely, I was also in a much more healed state of mind. But it never occurred to me that some people struggle with that. Like, to me, it seems very clear. I established a rule. You haven't followed the rule. I get to yell at you now. I get to bully you until you leave, and or security comes over to find out why I'm yelling. Like, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. That is so much fun. And 10 out of 10, I do recommend. If you haven't done that before, do it. You don't even have to have sex at the club. Just go to the club and like flash your titties out there, get an audience, and then give very specific directions and wait for someone to fuck it up. Start yelling.
At the party we went to, there was actually a guest who was like, I like that I can come here and not wear panties or do wear panties or like, right, it's like whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I think of okay, first I want to say, if there's anything that if I could choose just to have downloaded into my brain and into my comfort zone, is how you find pleasure in asserting boundaries, because that's
so great.
It's, I know it's like a muscle. You practice it, you build that strength, and I'm gonna get there. And I have versions of it that work really well, and so I know that I can see that in you because it's in me. But yeah, no, that the shameless plug of try a lifestyle event, even if you don't have any intention of making it sexual in any way, that's totally fine. Like, you can just go and be in a space where a bunch of other people are just being in the space and practice something that you wouldn't practice in the real world.
I would say at least half the time, if not more, that I go out to an event, while I may be open to a sexy thing happening, I don't end up engaging. I like to watch. I like to hang out in that environment and engage with those people. I'm at a point where I don't feel any obligation to do anything once I'm there. And so sometimes, a lot of the time, I don't, because I didn't find anyone that tickled my fancy, or I just wasn't feeling it that day.
Yeah. So you heard it here first. Even porn stars go to lifestyle clubs and don't fuck. So
Yeah,
it's
all the time.
Anything is fair game.
Yeah.
All right, good. Any last words of wisdom?
Ah, man. No, I'm just a girl.
Beautiful. Okay, well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.